Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Everybody, welcome back to Madness Cafe. Today, Jennifer and I are joined by two very special guests. Their names are May and Teja, and they are high school students and part of HOSA, which is an organization based in healthcare and leadership. Their aim is to reduce the stigma around stress and stress management. May and Teja, thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to talk to y'all today.
Thank you for having us.
In unison. Okay, so the first question I want to ask the both of you is just to briefly introduce yourselves and then tell us about your project. What are you doing?
Okay, so I can go first. Like Raquel said, my name's Teja, and we're working on a project for community awareness. So the event basically aims to take a healthcare or safety issue that we feel passionate about and spread the word about it. So we decided to go with reducing stigma around stress management. As high school students, we're part of different clubs. May is part of sports. So there's just a lot going on in our lives, and we want to kind of address the stress that we feel and also aim to spread the word around it so that way people feel safe enough to talk about their stress concerns as well.
And I'm May. As Teja explained, that's what our project is. And I think we really chose it because of what we've experienced as high schoolers and as we go into college next year, because we're seniors, and as we join the workforce after, it's going to be a lot. We both want to pursue medicine, and me more on the technology side. Teja wants to become a surgeon. So those are really like high stress jobs. So it's not only for us to help others, but to help ourselves and to really like maximize our stress management as we get into more advanced fields. So,
okay, I just have to say, I am so, first of all, very impressed with the two of you that you guys are working on this program and that you're even thinking about stress management at such a young age. I mean, Jennifer and I have talked about this on the show previously, that there's certain stress management skills and coping skills and things like that that we didn't learn when we were y'all's age. And I mean, hell, some of them we're learning now in our 50s. And I just let me just put it out there. I think this is fantastic that y'all are even thinking about this, and that hopefully that will help y'all along the way and maybe not have to deal with some of the repercussions of not managing stress well that Jennifer and I and that plenty of other people have and maybe still are dealing with. So kudos to the two of you that you're thinking about this at such a young age. I
Thank you.
just think that's fantastic.
What are some of the activities you've done in this project?
May, do you want to explain those?
yes, our first thing that we really put into motion was we started an Instagram page. So I think we have around 9 or 10 posts up right now, and we post weekly. We've had one partnership post, so we're really trying to like spread our page and spread our message. We have around, I think, like 1,700 followers there.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. And then we've also, especially within our school, we're really trying to spread the message of stress management and reducing that stigma. So we've interviewed one of our teachers. She's an English teacher. Her interview was really eye-opening because she teaches the leadership class at our school as well, which is like a class about like diversity and like religion, sexuality, and it really pushes the envelope. So it was really eye-opening to talk to her. And we talked to our restorative practices facilitator, who at our school is really the lady who anyone who's like having a stressful time at home outside of school, not necessarily a social worker, but more of a counselor, just someone like if there's a fight at school, she's the one who resolves it. She's really good at problem solving and teamwork and all of that. And she also works with our school diversity club. So again, that aspect, she does deal with a lot of students and their stresses. So she was really important to talk to as well. And then one of our counselors at our school, we interviewed him, and it was also eye-opening to talk to him, and he helped us implement our stress management brochure. So we kind of like compiled a lot of resources and information into a little brochure, and we were able to help with his help get that out to the students. Off the top of my head, I can't think of what else. Teja, can you
Yeah,
help?
so we're also planning a global webinar. So we have partnerships with speakers in different countries. We have one from Spain, Madrid, so just branched across America as well. And that is on November 19th. So if anyone that's listening to this podcast wants to join the webinar, that would be on our Instagram page. But we're going to talk about, what stress is, what stress management is, different coping strategies that, our speakers could listen and follow along with. And apart from the webinar, yeah, I can't really think of anything on my top of my head, but we're
You
continuing with the
contacted
initiative.
us.
Yes, we're doing this podcast with you guys. That's another activity that we're doing. So yeah.
And why did you decide to contact us, and how did you find out about us?
So we saw you guys on Instagram. We were just, as we were trying to like spread our page, we were looking at other healthcare or mental health supported pages, and along the way found yours. We watched a couple of the short clips on your Instagram page, and we thought you guys would be a good fit for our project.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. We're glad you guys reached out to us.
Of course.
That feels good. Awesome. Awesome. How has working on this program affected the two of you personally?
Okay, so I can start for this one. So October is known as college month for us, right? College application month. And as seniors, there is so much that goes into it. And it's not like, oh, it's a small detail, we can skip over it, because this is college. Like, this is the next 4 years. So every little step, every single letter you type out for your application has to be perfect, right? Or at least nearly perfect. So that stress that comes out with filling out college applications, at least for me, was a lot. It really took a toll on my body, right? And at the same time, I'm trying to work on the stress management project. So at one point, I was like, wait a minute, I think I need to start doing these techniques that I'm
Yep.
presenting to other people. So I think working with the project allowed me to like recognize the symptoms of stress that, I'm going through. For me personally, I've always had like kind of like a busy schedule. So there's not even time to think about, oh, am I stressed? Like, how am I feeling? There's not much of a chance to recollect and see how I'm feeling as a person. So I think the project kind of led me to that way.
Yeah, so mine is kind of the same. I really didn't notice my symptoms of stress throughout high school. And then once we started this project and we were researching, I was responsible for we made actually one of the things we forgot to talk about was we went to all of our health classes, and while they were doing their stress management unit, we presented as well. So it was a good chance to continue spreading our message throughout our school. Throughout college app month, I also had volleyball. So I played volleyball for my school. So it was a lot. And I was getting really tired physically and then mentally. I'm coming home every night, doing my homework, staying up late to finish all my things. And I've always struggled with time management. So that's, it wasn't a great mix. Through this project, I was really able to, for one, notice my stress symptoms. Some people get headaches when they're stressed, or just don't feel good. I get stomach aches, and I recognize that now. So it's important for me to drink, that's why I have my water glass near me, and to eat food more than when I'm stressed, to really emphasize that. And then I actually started a little gratitude journal. I got that going, and both of those things, making sure I'm getting all my water, taking my vitamins, eating, and making sure I stay grateful. Those things have really helped me, and without this project, I don't think I honestly would have made those changes. But yeah.
When you presented to the other students in their health class, what kinds of reaction or feedback or questions did you get from fellow students?
In our presentation, we had a little interactive segment, so it wasn't just us presenting. We asked some
Nice.
questions as well. And one of the questions was, what is stress, right? And I think this question was, really interesting because like me and May said, a lot of us are stressed, but we don't know what it feels like. We just, kind of push through it. So I think listening to them and, one student would say something and then you could just see it in their eyes of the other students and be like, wait, I feel that too. And kind of that moment of bonding and connecting over this feeling that we've kind of suppressed and, a taboo topic, like bringing
Mm.
that out and being able to share it in a safe space, I think that was really eye opening and probably the most beneficial effect that we've had from this project. Other than that, I would say, like, especially for an interactive segment, starting that conversation with that class was really hard, or for all of the health classes that we had, because again, it's kind of like there's so much stigma around stress management. So, kind of getting them to speak out about it was difficult. But obviously, as we're presenting, we started the conversation off and then kind of like, engage them a little bit and try to make it a comfortable space.
Yeah, adding on to that, there would be that awkward silence, especially since we presented to 3 different health classes, so at, like, 8 AM, 9 AM, and, like, 12 PM, basically, and that 8 AM class was difficult because, you have a lot of tired kids and
You're still asleep.
yeah, and honestly, some of the kids were still sleeping, and so me and Tasia really tried to stand through that awkward silence once we asked a question and then prompt each other, like, Tasia, when do you experience stress? What are your symptoms? How do you deal with it? Like those kinds of things. And I think one really important thing for me was when we were doing our presentation at 12 o'clock. So, one of the later classes, Tasia asked, how do you define stress? And as a volleyball player, I had a few of my underclassmen teammates in the class. And so I was able to prompt them and they said, well, I'm stressed during sports. And I think that's like a very like prominent example during high school. And I think they just all started talking and it was really like cool to see, especially since we had done the presentation twice and no one said anything. We were able to start talking. And I think it was a very important experience because that health class is like mandatory. So no one really takes it seriously. And to have upperclassmen come in, we're very prominent members of our school community. So to have us come in and kind of like start that dialogue, I think it was really important for a lot of the students. And especially like Teja said, that what is stress question? What are your symptoms of stress? And like acknowledging that I think was really essential for a lot of students. And I hope really eye opening for a lot of them as well.
What kind of responses have y'all gotten from your peers since you started the program and since you did the presentations?
Gratitude, I think, to put it in one word, that would be like the easiest example. I think just being able to create a space and being able to share a topic like this, a lot of people
Mm.
are grateful for that because I mean, it's kind of like a shutdown topic. Like, even if you do recognize you have stress, you might not have a safe space to talk about it. You might not want to talk about it because you're scared of being given a stigmatizing label. So I
Mhm.
think being thankful for this opportunity to share the topic with others.
Yeah, and adding on to that, I think we've kind of become safe people to come talk to about it because as I said, my underclassmen teammates, some of them have parents who like don't recognize how stressful, the season can be and like some of them are freshmen, so how stressful high school can be and like that adjustment especially for a lot of them. And even if they're not underclassmen, I think like bringing this up more than just a small unit in health class and like continually sharing our message and putting ourselves in places where people are stressed go like with our counselor and with our restorative practices facilitator and just making sure that our message is heard. I think some of the responses and are grateful and like a lot of people felt this was necessary because of mental health and the stigma around stress. I think a lot of people are really again grateful for what we've been able to do so far and what we hope to do in the future.
Now, can you help define the stigma? Is it labels of depression or is it like what does the stigma feel like for a young person?
So I feel like it begins with kind of like casually throwing around words, especially like, oh, I'm depressed. Like,
Mm.
you, I feel like it's like commonly used, right? You might
Sure.
not be necessarily depressed, like clinically, but I feel like just like throwing around the word, that's where it kind of starts, right? And that can, some people might support you and they'd be like, oh, are you feeling okay? How do you want me to help you? Other people might take that as a chance to, add on other names that might be kind of hurtful. So that's something that I've seen other people experience, not necessarily a personal experience. For me personally, I think I haven't really heard anything specifically said to me that's made me feel like it's a stigma, more just social media in general and how I've seen maybe like top celebrities expressing their stress concerns and how the general public reacts to it. And kind of that negative reaction is obviously amplified. And that's what we see more than the positive reaction and the support they get. Kind of seeing that, oh, if a top celebrity is being shamed for being depressed or having a mental health illness, maybe I shouldn't be able to express my own mental health
I
concerns.
see.
Mm.
See.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like a two-way street where like stress can lead into other things. And a lot of people are scared to see where that can go. Stress can lead to depression, to anxiety, to like just physical and mental symptoms in general. And also, I think it's more of like, for me personally, from what I've heard, it's parents and teachers. And,
Mhm.
if you say you're stressed and maybe you need another day for an assignment or you need to stay up a little later than your parents want you to, or like you're just feeling stressed in general and it's just like you want to take a break. I think a lot of people, I know one person came to us and said, my parents don't believe in stress. And when I say I'm stressed, they tell me to suck it up. And it's one of those things that as we're growing up, we just don't want to hear. And it doesn't make you feel heard or seen or respected. So we're trying to break down those barriers. And again, especially with like classes of students, when we bring up stress, no one wants to talk about it because they don't want their experiences to be minimized or reduced just because it's not enough to some people. So I think that's what we were really thinking about and trying to improve.
Well, yeah, exactly. Jennifer's clapping. Yes. All the applause for both of you. One thing that I'm thinking about, because you guys are seniors, you will be graduating and moving on. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with your school that you guys have a restorative practices
Yeah, we never had
person
anyone
there.
like
We
that.
didn't have anything like that. And Jennifer and I
No.
went to high school together, so we didn't have that at our high school, although it would have been amazing. So I'm wondering, especially after you guys are gone, have you guys talked with your restorative practices, I guess, director, coordinator? I forget what you said the rest of her title was, but is there going to be something put in place so that after you guys are gone and after you're finished with this project, that there's a way to continue the work that you guys are starting?
Yeah, so I can take this one. Our restorative practices facilitator is also our diversity club. What's the word? Advisor. And I'm part of diversity club. I'm president, so I'm very like close with the club. And she's like, well, she's an amazing woman. Teja can attest to that. What we've been working with her to do is to again have those brochures that we've made available because they are very valuable resources for any student. And then to have those in the counseling office and really I don't think we've thought that much about it up until it's, time for us to go. And we can hand this down to somebody, but I think Tasia, what do you think? I don't know.
So, like May said, the brochures, we're trying to make that more spread throughout the school. And then we also do have a mental health club at our school, which we presented our presentation to as well. So I
God, that's
think,
impressive.
yeah, I think that club is something, if used properly, it could be a safe space for everyone to come talk to and, spread their concerns. So kind of growing that club with the support of our project would be great.
Wow, I'm so impressed with the school that you guys go to. I mean, Jennifer and I went to a really good high school, but wow. I mean, just to hear that high schools have improved this much and have gone to the point where there's a mental health club and there's a restorative practices facilitator. I mean, that is huge. I'm so impressed. And I'm so impressed with the two of you that you are looping all of these things together and presenting it to your school. It's not just, oh, we're just doing this for a project, whatever. It's you guys are having an impact on your fellow classmates. I just think that's incredibly impressive. I'm just very excited about the work that y'all are doing. So
Thank
do y'all
you.
see that you might continue this sort of work when you're in college?
Yeah, definitely. I think, post-secondary, like there's so many clubs, so many opportunities to continue, whether we want to start our own project or club for that, or we want to join one of the existing clubs. Obviously, it's early fall, so I still don't know where I'm going, but I'm sure wherever I choose to go, there will be some sort of resource. And like May said in the beginning, we're hoping to go into a healthcare profession, whether that's tech or, actual being a physician. And I think with being a physician, something that I want to focus on, and I've talked about this a lot in my applications, is being empathetic. I think when patients come into the hospital, yes, they have a physical illness, but it's important to look beyond that because they have like a stress and a concern, an emotional concern that's attached to that. Not just do they want to know the diagnosis and the treatment for their disease, they want their concerns to be heard. They want their emotions to be validated. They're gonna be scared about the test results. There's some sort of anxiety, not just for the patient, but for the family. So I think, building on emotional intelligence and recognizing those fears and concerns is important.
You need to present at every hospital I've ever been to.
Yes, yes, yes. And at every med school. Like just
Right.
keep on talking about this. Yes, yes. And May, I want to hear from you about this too. I mean, especially with you going into the tech side of medicine. I'm so excited to hear how you're going to incorporate that.
Honestly, I'm not sure. Teja has really thought this out, but I think I really just want to be an individual in like sharing what we've learned so far. And honestly, Teja said, join new things, but honestly, I hope we continue to do this. I know we can't continue spreading it throughout our school once we graduate, but hopefully continuing to do online things like this and like continuing our Instagram page. I hope to continue with this program, but in my field, I'm honestly not sure where I would even start with this. Maybe incorporating it into some tech. I don't know how to answer that. I'm sorry, but
No,
just
that's a great answer. Both of you, you're doing great. I mean, you're not supposed to know the answers to everything at all at
Heck,
any
we don't
age.
know the answers to everything
I don't know the
or
answers to
or
half of the
hardly
things.
anything.
Exactly. So
One of the things I was really curious about, I watched your 3 episodes that you did with the people in your school, the adults in your school. Have you noticed differences? And this may be a yes or no, or you haven't noticed, but have you noticed differences in the way that the adults answer the questions around what is stress and what are some of their coping mechanisms or techniques versus how the students answer the question, what is stress and what are the coping mechanisms and techniques?
Okay, I think there is a difference with our interview for our English teacher and also the diversity teacher. I think because she teaches diversity and dialogues, I think she had more of an open perspective on students and staff, and she's recognized that there are differences in how students perceive stress based on their, what group they're part of, whether that's ethnicity, identity, whatever they may be, right? There's differences in our lives that affect how we perceive stress. And I think she was able to understand that and provide us with coping strategies based on that. For our counselor, I think he does deal with more of the emotional side and something a little bit more deeper because he is a counselor. So I think for him, he was able to provide us with examples of stress and how he's given them coping strategies. In terms of differentiating between teachers and students, I would say obviously like students are going to see test and homework as stress and teachers probably won't see that as, kind of stressful because it's part of curriculum. But apart from that, I would say they're pretty similar. I think like you guys said, there's been a difference in high school, even from like 4 years ago when I was a freshman. Healthcare wasn't this prevalent, especially mental health. It was very, shut down, closed. I would say coming out of COVID, because there were a lot of changes and going back into school, that was kind of the beginning of mental health resources kind of arising and being more prominent. But I would say there's been such a tremendous growth in the last 3 years that I feel like teachers and students are starting to connect with each other and they're building a safe relationship to share
good.
their concerns. So there isn't much of a difference.
I know Teja said honestly they were very similar, but when you first asked this question, I really thought they were vastly different in terms of students' responses to what is stress and like their responses versus the adults, because I think when we asked the students, a lot of them just said like one word answers: sports, homework, family. Like, and I think that's why it's very important for us to do that, just because right now it's very singular in terms of stress. Or I just thought it was very different because a lot of the adults gave very, and they've been trained in what stress is and stress management, but they gave very definition responses. And then their coping techniques were very established. I think like they knew what worked for them. Our English teacher is also the girls and boys soccer coach. So she said physical activity has always worked for her and will always work for her. And then our restorative practices facilitator likes yoga and like aromatherapy. And I can't recall what our counselor said. I think he said reading or something. So they know. But when we asked students, it was more like, I don't know. I'm just stressed all the time. So, and again, I think that's why our project is really important, especially in our school. And as we continue to share those techniques with them, I think a lot more students are saying like, oh, I like to read. And like, I didn't even like recognize that like when I'm stressed out, I just watch YouTube or TikTok or whatever. I thought it was vastly different, but I see the similarities between them. I just think students didn't really verbalize it that much, but yeah.
Adding on to Mehar, I think part of it is like the maturity, and that's what we're hoping to spread because as high schoolers, again, we don't really understand what stress is. If you're looking at the base of it, yes, there are similarities between teachers and students, but I think the main difference is students don't understand the complexity of stress, especially when they're not a trained adult that deals with stress and kids that are dealing with mental health issues like a restorative practice facilitator and or counselor, because they understand complexity of stress. They understand the consequences of not properly dealing with stress. And I think students kind of give those one word answers because that's kind of their direct source, and they don't really see past it. So being able to provide students with an opportunity to kind of expand their thoughts and ideas on where that stress comes from is a good part of our project.
In the brochure that you guys are spreading throughout your school, I believe you said that there's resources listed in there. Are there certain like ideas of different practices that people can use to help with managing their stress? And if so, like just give us a couple of the tools that you guys put in there that people can use for stress management.
I can pull it up really quickly just so I don't say something that isn't true. Give me one. Yeah, go ahead.
Pulling that up, I will talk about our presentation a little bit. On our presentation, we had government resources that are, completely trustable. They're like contact phone numbers that you could go to if you're feeling stressed. So that was an option. But then we also at the end did say that, social media, I think there's good sides and bad sides. There's, podcasts and Instagram pages that we have, and we're good resources to go to. So there's so many pages that not only provide information, but also stories on how they've dealt with stress and how they've overcame it in a healthy way. So I think as much as social media has a lot of negative impacts on your stress, if you use it correctly, there are ways to use it to benefit you.
Yeah, so from what we did, we asked a few of our friends for what they do and pulled from our teachers. So like a lot of people said watch TV or movies, and we kind of dumped YouTube and TikTok into that just because we just wanted to be general. Go for a walk or a hike, listen to music, read a book, talk to family and friends, garden, meditate. The list goes on. It's kind of comprehensive, but we really just wanted to put those at the end of our brochure to make sure we're inclusive, and it's a good conclusion to our resources on what stress is and reducing the stigma. So.
I like that. Those are some good ones. Yeah.
So going back to your question, kind of summarize in terms of practices, I think we've provided a fair amount of traditional practices, whether that's like a clinical approach or, a more teen-friendly, kind of chill, relaxed way to approach your stress.
I like that. And I like that you talk about that there's some negatives to social media, but there's also positives as well, right? And Jennifer and I actually did an episode recently about the positive sides of social media, and that there's certain Instagram pages and YouTube channels and TikTok creators that We follow that some that make us feel better, and then there's others that if they don't make us feel so great, we don't follow those anymore.
Delete.
We don't follow them for a while. Yeah, exactly. You just delete them. But that there's plenty out there that actually do actually make us feel better, or they give us ideas on what else to do to manage our stress. Like you're saying, like gardening or going for a hike or finding people that you can talk to, whether it's friends or family, and realizing who's a safe space to talk about things and who maybe is not a safe space to talk about things. So I think it's great that y'all are addressing it from multiple avenues.
How hard was it to pull off this project, and were there roadblocks that you ran into?
Part of it is getting the word out. Like me and May said, I think mostly like scheduling conflicts. Our first deadline, so it's a competition, there's regional, state, and international level, but our regional conference is in December, early December, and our portfolio is due late November. Getting all these activities in before that deadline, and obviously you would have to make a connection with the organization that you want to partner with, set up a date, actually run the activity, and then, kind of recap on the event. So I think part of like the scheduling timeline would be our only conflict challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say scheduling, and we've run into some technical difficulties with our webinar. When we posted the join code, we didn't know that it was case sensitive. So we posted it in all caps, and then no one could join, and we had to reschedule, which was a whole thing. But other than that, from a social perspective, I think with our project, I think we've been trying to, other than our health class presentation, we've been trying to keep our names out of it just because it's hard for a lot of people to take this seriously when they know where it's coming from. If we put our names on the brochure, it probably would get tossed out sooner than what it is now. I think it's good to have that kind of anonymity because it keeps like, and it's hard because then it's more difficult to push out the material. But I think starting everything up, we've never done this event before. So that was definitely one roadblock in the beginning, was coming up with ideas. And we did talk about starting our own podcast, but we're not that creative. So
Oh, yes, you are.
I think y'all are for sure.
Oh, yes, you are. You might not have
But
that much time, but you're that creative.
thank you. Yeah, just really coming up with the events. And I think the events are our main thing because we can write papers. We've done it all of our high school careers. We can do presentations. We've done it all of our high school careers. But these programs, running them, starting them, and for certain things, keeping our names out of them while promoting our content, I think those are the three main roadblocks that we faced. But
Yeah. Well, you did a really great job with that, because when the two of you reached out to the two of us, we had no idea that you were high school students.
Yeah, none at all.
So it was kind of a shock, and such a great shock. Such a great thing. How can we help you win the contest?
Yes, we want you to win.
We're
we do.
invested. We're invested now.
Listen to the podcast, get the word out. The bigger the impact, more people listen to it, more people actually, take the advice and kind of recognize where their stress comes from. That's our winning point.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love it.
Listeners, share the link to the podcast, get the word out.
Yes. Go to their Instagram page, and we'll put the link to the webinar in the show notes. People, go to the webinar, support this organization and this project. We want May and Teja to win. Just there we go. We want them to win. So
We're invested.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, our competitive sides are coming out now. So, So when do y'all find out who wins?
December 9th. So that's our regional conference.
Okay.
And we're given like a slot to present. So basically, we have to create a portfolio that talks about all the events that we've done so far, and if we're planning something in the between, our continued events, and then kind of like the impacts, the stats around the events that we've done, all compiled into a PDF, and then we send that off late November. December 9th is when we present. So we're going to make I think it's like a 3 to 5 minute speech. We kind of just talk about the activities we did, the impact, and how we think it affected the community. And yeah, I mean, later that night, we get to find out.
Oh, okay, you guys have to keep us posted
Of
and let
course.
us know how you do. And we will totally let our listeners know how you do as well. Because, I mean, seriously, this is amazing work. Jennifer and I have talked about this before, that when we were growing up, there were coping skills and ways of talking about stress and what we were going through. And, I mean, any of that we just didn't know. But thankfully, you guys are learning this stuff way earlier than we did, which is huge. And I can't tell you how excited we are to know that you guys are doing your part, more than your part, to get the word out and to help make sure that other people know, first off, how to deal with stress. And second, that stress isn't something to be ashamed of. Everybody gets stressed. Everybody has anxiety at one time or another about something. It's not shameful. We all go through it. Here are ways to handle it. So I think that's amazing.
Do you want to turn the tables a little bit and ask Raquel and I some of your questions, or is there anything else you want to share with the audience? I can think we'll kind of turn it over to you both now. If you have anything you want to present or ask, or we'll put it in your hands.
I guess we can ask you the question that we've been asking everyone. What do you think stress is? How do you define stress?
Okay, stress can be a good thing. It can be, because it can be a motivator, right? Like, oh, okay, I care about, say, like in work, like I care about my job. I want to do well. So yes, there's going to be a little bit of stress because I want to do well, right? But then when that stress gets to the point where it's not motivating me, but it's making me shut down, or it's creating anxiety, or maybe I'm not sleeping well, or I'm not eating well, or I don't know, crying at work, then that's where stress moves into the it's not great phase. So that's just one way that I define stress.
I think that's a perfect example. And to just touch base on that, during our presentation, we actually talked about that. So there's two different types of stress: eustress and distress. Eustress would be the good type of stress that you said, especially about something that we feel so passionate about. There's going to be a stress to be perfect at it, or at least try to be perfect at it. If you absolutely, love something, not even something, a loved one, you want to care for them. You want to make sure they're doing well. So the stress that comes behind caring for someone, that's eustress. And then on the other hand, there's distress. That's the harmful type of stress that you want to avoid. And you kind of want to use a healthy stress managed technique to deal with. And, there's different types of distress, whether that's chronic or acute. So, yeah, I think recognizing what type of stress that is it really affecting me? And if it is, how can I deal with it is important.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. For me, what I think is real interesting is I can tie my experience back to what the two of you were talking about when you said sometimes the students didn't even know they had stress. I felt that way probably the majority of my life until Raquel and I started doing the podcast. If you had asked me, I was just like coping and moving and doing things. And then we started talking about, with our different guests, feeling our emotions, where does it lie in our body? And now for me, I can tell when I'm getting stressed because I start to feel it in my stomach. My
Mm-hmm.
stomach starts to knot up, and it's almost like the hair on the back of my neck rises, and I feel this, I got to get there faster, I got to drive faster, or I need to, like, I feel this tension that runs through my body. And I'm assuming that tension was always there, but I just never recognized it before. So that's kind of, I would identify it now with how I feel it in my body.
Yeah. And May, do you have a question you want to ask?
I mean, I guess we touched on this earlier, but we did think about starting our own podcast for a minute. Just like, what is the stress that you guys feel from the podcast, and maybe like juggling that in your daily lives with your daily lives? Like, I'm just
That's a
curious, like how you
great
guys balance
question.
it all.
Yeah.
That's a really great question. Go ahead, Raquel.
Well, part of my stress with the podcast is, and this is not a bad stress. This is more of kind of a motivator, I guess, but I want the podcast to be so good, right? And so sometimes I get a little stressed about what if I don't ask good questions, or what if my earbuds stop working, as they did just a minute ago, or what if I say something stupid, or I sound like an idiot while I'm talking to the guest, that kind of stuff is what I get a little stressed about sometimes. Or, and this isn't really a stressor. Okay, because so sometimes before an episode, like I've talked to Jennifer and I'm like, oh, I'm really nervous about this one, or oh, what if it doesn't turn out right, or oh my God, just the whole, like, literally feeling it in my body, like feeling it in my chest and being nervous and shaky, the whole thing. And then those are the episodes that almost always turn out to be like super great, that I had a great time, the guest was great, I enjoyed all of it, the whole thing. And so now I'm starting to see the stress maybe as an indicator of how much I care about that episode, right?
Mm,
Like, I'm really nervous, and so I want it to be really good, but maybe this stress or anxiety is actually excitement. Like, maybe I'm just really excited about this one. So yeah, so it's just it kind of changes. But I think the fact that Jennifer and I talked about stress and mental health and that sort of thing, like she was saying that she recognizes it more. I think I've started that as well, is that I recognize different things as maybe a positive or a different indicator of stress, not just stress, oh my God, but stress, oh, I'm excited.
I
that's
mean, just to
interesting.
say, I love the podcast. I was listening to a short clip of your podcast before too. And for today's podcast, you guys are doing amazing. So I hope you
Thank
feel
you.
excited rather than nervous. But I would say in my heart, we're extremely nervous coming on here because this is the first time we've done a podcast as a guest, even. So we were like, oh my God, what do we say? Like, how do we talk? Like, we were like, oh, this is going to be like either a hit or miss. Like, we're either going to, do it, or it's going to be a hot mess. So
You hit it.
You guys totally knocked it out of the park. You guys have done so well. So
and thank you to you guys for making it comfortable for us enough to talk.
Our pleasure.
Exactly. Thank you.
For me, the stress around the podcast has nothing to do with that. I stress about deadlines. I'm like, oh, we got to get this in the calendar. Oh, we got to get it edited at this time. Oh, we got to get a social media post out. And that seems to be all the stress in my life. I'm the kind of person that if I have to work at 8 o'clock, I'm there at 7:45. I am a scheduled person. So I stress about schedules, meeting deadlines, getting people booked. And that's just, I try to relax on that, but I'm not a very relaxed person. So, which is interesting because Raquel and I, we both have podcast stress, but it's different than each other's.
mhm.
So
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think we balance each other out that way.
we
You
do.
know? Yeah.
We do. It's a good thing. It's good partnership.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions?
I guess to finish it off, you guys talked about what you guys are stressed about. So how do you deal with the stress?
Hmm.
You know what?
Hmm.
I have to make myself breathe. You know what I mean? Like, I have to remind myself, like, just breathe. It's okay. Just breathe. I really have to make myself pause and just take a beat. I have to make myself relaxed and just, like, for me, just stress in general, a lot of times it'll be I've gone to the worst case scenario. Like, I go from 0 to, the end of the world in like 12 seconds. Like, it takes nothing. So I literally have to, like, I calm down, pull it back, rein it back in, take a breath. What's the next step? Just, you don't have to do the whole thing at one time. Just take it one bit at a time. Like, that's what I have to do, is I have to just make myself slow down. And whether that's through taking a breath or taking several breaths or reading something or writing and getting the thoughts out of my head. For me, it's mainly like, okay, slow down, think it through, take a minute.
So for me, I do a lot of physical stuff. I run, I do yoga, I meditate. I've been on a streak. I've meditated every day for the last 2 months straight. I haven't missed a day. I was sort of willy nilly hit or miss before that. I run or walk my dog every day. But I think the biggest thing for me is to be scheduled. If I have a schedule and I follow my schedule, then I don't stress about, like, I always edit the podcast on Mondays. That's just what I do. I try to have everything to Raquel, the podcast, by Monday night so she can do her part. I have a schedule, and if I follow and stick to my schedule, then I don't stress about the deadlines.
Mhm.
So I think just like really being aware that I am a person that functions within a schedule. Some people do, some people don't. I'm
Mhm.
not very good at flying by the seat of my pants and just doing things here and there, because then I do nothing. I end up playing on TikTok and watching TV.
Yeah.
Right. So, or reading a book. I love to read. So I could get into a book and read it for 12 hours, but then I'm behind on the things that would actually cause me stress. So
Mhm.
I've learned that over time. Follow the schedule, things are good.
Yeah. And to piggyback off what Jennifer said about schedules, I have to put things in my calendar, right? Like I have to know, even if stuff has started to get to be a routine for me, I still have to have it in my calendar because something might happen and, I might get preoccupied with something and then I forget. But if it's in my calendar, if I see it, then there's my reminder. Okay, yeah, I need to do this.
Yeah.
So literally having some, whether it's paper planner in my phone, actually I'm doing both. I have to have it right there. And that's something that I started doing in college, like like using a planner because, okay, this is kind of a weird way to start using a planner, but it was when I joined sorority and I needed to keep track of all the things that we had to do as little baby sorority girls. So yeah, so that's why I first started using a planner, but it totally helps. I've continued using it since my sorority days. But yeah, so having a schedule and having something right there where I can see this is what I need to do and not depending on my memory is great. Just having it right there and I can just look at it and go, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yep. Yep. Was there anything that the two of you wanted to get out to the audience that you didn't get the chance to?
Yep.
I don't think there's anything for me. Nope.
I think we're good.
Awesome.
No?
You two are very impressive and I just can't wait to see first off how this all goes for you guys with the program and I'm excited to hear you guys tell us that you won. And because we're putting that out there, we're putting it in the universe that y'all are going to win. And I'm just so excited for what you guys do in the future. I think you two are going to achieve great things, whether they're on some grand scale or whether it's something grand for yourself. I feel very good for the future for the two of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for being on today.
Yes,
Of course.
thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Final thoughts?
I am just I'm so impressed with May and Tasia. So very impressed. They're doing really great work, not just within their peer group, within their school, but this is going to extrapolate out, right? There will be ripples from this. And I think that's amazing. And just when they were talking about doing their presentation and they're like, oh, we've done presentations before, it was nothing, blah, blah, blah. And my first thought was, oh my God, I literally would have I would have frozen up and died if I'd had to give a presentation in high school. I'm
Raquel, you
gonna die
stood
if
on
I
a
tell people
diving
to go
board
now.
in front of, come on.
I know, but I
You
didn't have
cut
to talk.
yourself short.
I didn't have to talk. That's
You
different.
do.
I was just flinging my
You get
body in
on.
there.
You get on a podcast and you talk all the time. Give
Well,
me a break.
sure, now, but yeah. But I just think they're incredibly impressive and, yeah.
Yeah, we had this Instagram page talking about reducing stigma around stress management.
Mhm.
Reach out to us as podcasters. We had no idea they were high school students. Their
No.
Instagram looks professional. It's well maintained.
Mhm.
The conversation back and forth, setting up the podcast interview, very professional, well done. Listeners, if you get a chance, go on and listen to their interviews with their teachers and counselors because that information is really interesting and well done. And
Mhm.
I also feel that you can see the growth from the first interview that they do to the last interview that they
Mhm.
do.
Absolutely.
And it's just an incredible journey for such young people to be on. And also, like Raquel said, it has such a ripple effect out into the community for the fellow students, for the teachers, for the people who listen, and for the fact that just to know that we all experience stress in different ways
Mhm.
and that stress in and of itself is not necessarily bad, it's not necessarily good. It's how we manage it and how we work with it, how we're able to talk to it. And as we've said many, many times, talking about something brings it out into the open, which
Mhm.
makes it lose its shame.
Yep.
There is no shame in that which we can talk about.
Yeah.
And we talk about a lot of depressing subjects on this podcast. And these two are like a bright light that say the future is amazing.
Mhm.
If we have these two in charge of our country 20 years from now, we will be in good hands.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And just to think about the effect that this is going to have on them personally going forward. That's amazing. I mean, they have just given themselves, whether they realized it at the time, when they first started doing it or not, they've given themselves a huge leg up because they are going to know, first off, that everybody has stress. So take that shame and stigma out of it, right?
Yep.
And they already know that there's ways to handle stress that are healthy, that are positive, that actually help and can be rejuvenating. I
Yeah.
think I think that's huge. That's amazing. I'm so impressed with the two of them.
What a beautiful gift they've given the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And how lucky are we that we got to talk to them today? That's awesome. That's so awesome. I'm so glad they reached out to us.
Me too. Me too. Bye, Raquel.
Bye, Jennifer. Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.